When I found out Sarra Manning was coming to the Lit Fest, I literally squeed. See, she writes real, strong, sometimes gobby alternative characters. She likes roller derby. I got my derby scrim shirts an hour before the Sarra Manning event, so I might have been a little bit like, look, shirts, derby, wheels, bruises, kick-ass, yay! Sorry, Sarah. And she's not afraid of social media. This'll be fun, I thought. And she didn't disappoint. Take a look.
Hello, it's really nice to be here. So I'm going to read a little bit from my latest YA, which is called Adorkable. And just to give you a really sort of brief plot outline, but I'll be banging on about it afterwards. It's about a girl called Jean Smith, who's kind of, although she's a teenager, she's kind of CEO of her own lifestyle brand, Adorkable. She's got 500,000 followers on Twitter. She's got her own sort of website, she's got her own sort of trend spotting agency. But she also is just a schoolgirl. And there's this guy in her school called Michael Smith, who's just one of those boys that's good at everything and everybody loves him. And she just sort of thinks he's an absolute, just an absolute cookie cutter, mediocre idiot. And he just thinks she's an obnoxious, really badly dressed girl with a lot to say for herself. So the bit I'm going to sort of read is just this bit where sort of Michael and Jean are just having one of their usual arguments, right? She climbed on her bike and she was about to go, even though there were many things I had to say, and I couldn't remember what they were at that exact moment. Well, we should really not do this again sometime, she said jauntily, and she stood up on the pedals and moved forward, and I grabbed hold of the back of her bike because I just remembered that I wanted to tell her that she was an insufferable, stuck-up cow. It seemed to happen in slow motion. Jean went pitching right over the handlebars. I watched helplessly as she seemed to stay airborne for several long moments, and she hit the ground with a dull thud, arms and legs at horribly weird angles, like she'd broken all her limbs, like I'd broken all her limbs. She lay there silent and still. That would have been a relief at any other time, but not when I was sure I'd just killed her. Oh my God, this is going to seriously screw up my Cambridge interview, was the immediate thought that popped into my head. And then I remembered that I was a trained first aider, partly because my dad was adamant that everyone should learn basic life-saving skills, but also because my mother had been equally adamant that it would look really good on my UCAS form. I needed to check that Jean was still breathing, but to do that I had to turn her over, and she really shouldn't be moved. Or should she? Was I meant to be putting her in the recovery position? Heavens to freaking Betsy, she suddenly groaned and rolled over. She wasn't dead and I wasn't going to be charged with manslaughter, maybe just aggravated assault, because her tights were shredded and there were steady streams of blood running down her legs, which made her orange tights look even worse. My phone, is my phone all right? Jean wasn't yelling at me, which was good, unless she was saving her energy for when she called the police. I picked up her bike, the front wheel was completely buckled, and set it on its kickstand. Where was your phone? I asked her hoarsely. She frowned, or else her face creased up in pain. It was hard to tell. Maybe it's in my basket. I looked in her basket and pulled out her bulging, dorky, black toes and placed it in front of her. Jean sat up and groaned before she began to move through the bag, so at least her arms weren't broken. Which just left legs, ribs and possible concussion, because Jean was too much of a rebel to wear a safety helmet. Maybe you shouldn't move, I suggested. You might have internal bleeding. But I need my phone, she insisted, looking up at me with plaintive eyes. I can't find my phone. Are you sure it was in your bag? Jean looked around the yard, and I even squatted down and looked under a few parked cars, but then she gave a yelp. I turned around so quickly I almost fell over, because it sounded like a cage yelp. It was actually an I found my phone yelp. It was in my pocket all the time, she said, and she actually kissed her phone and rubbed it against her face until she realised that her cheek was grazed. Are you alright? I asked, because the way she was acting made me think she was suffering from shock, though it really wasn't any more crazy than how she usually acted. Does it hurt anywhere? I'm a little winded, Jean said. She was taking this way better than I'd ever expected. She hadn't screamed or said anything bitingly sarcastic, so maybe she did have a brain bleed. both kind of squealing a bit though. Look, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to do what I just did. It was a moment of madness. I'll totally pay to get your bike mended. Jean gave her bike a cursory glance and turned her attention back to her phone. I've never seen anyone type that fast. It's all right, she said. It's only a bike, no bones broken. Are you sure? Yeah, I think I'd known my bones were broken, she mumbled. And the bike is just a thing. Things can be replaced. I stood there, arms hanging uselessly down by my sides. I wasn't used to feeling useless. Should I make Jean stand up? And after she was upright, should I offer her a lift home? And sometime after that, should I beg her not to file an official complaint against me that would in any way impact on my choice of university? Well, you should probably stand up. Yeah, I'm just finishing my tweet. I've spent all day totally tweet blocks. This is a bit of a blessing in disguise, Jean said. And then she looked up, and then she looked down, and then, only then, did she scream. It was a horrible, piercing sound that rent the air, scaring a flock of pigeons which were scavenging by the bins into flight. You utter bastard. Look what you've done to my ties. She pointed at her shredded legs. They're ruined. They were, and quite frankly, it was an improvement. You just said that things can be replaced. Not my orange tights. It took me years to find a pair of the right shade of orange, and I got these in the shop in Stockholm over the last pair. Jean clenched her fists, and if I really thought she was going to cry or punch me. You shouldn't go around tipping people off their bikes. You're head of the student council. You're meant to set an example. Look, I said I was sorry, and I am sorry about your tights, but they're only tights. I looked at them again and wondered why Jean wasn't more concerned about her cuts and grazes, and then my eyes wandered down to her left ankle and stayed there. Oh my God. Yeah, well, I'm glad you appreciate the severity of the situation, Jean snapped. Unbelievably, she was reaching for her phone again. I'm going to try and find an inferior pair of orange tights on eBay, and you will so pay for them. Jean! Now what? I pointed a shaky finger at her ankle, which didn't even look like an ankle anymore. It was the size of a football. How can that not hurt? What? She looked down and her eyes rolled so I could only see the whites, and she lurched backwards so I had to rush to her side to stop her bashing her head on the concrete. She opened her mouth to say something, but all that came out was a weak little whimper. Does it really not hurt, Jean? She clutched onto my arm. Now I come to think of it hurts like a bitch, she gritted. I think I'm going to vom. I patted her hand, which was icy cold, as if she was in shock. I took off my leather jacket and placed it around her shoulders. I'm going to take you to hospital so you can have it x-rayed. Jean shook her head resolutely. No! I hate hospitals. Look, I think I can feel my toes. Would I be able to feel my toes if it was broken? Should I ask Twitter? When I sort of read some of the books that do really well, like Twilight, I just really sort of disliked the heroines. That there were these really... They were girls that things happened to them and they weren't making things happen. So, you know, sort of Bella, she's always sort of relying on herself to be sort of rescued. And I just sort of thought, no, I don't... And even in sort of contemporary YA, I just found that there weren't many sort of heroines with personalities. And I know that when I was a teenager, I was really gobby, I was really sort of opinionated. And so it really sort of made me sort of want to sort of write a YA that was kind of an antidote to these sort of really tricky girls that I could sort of just read about in books.
And were there any other inspirations?
All these sort of things, you know, I really sort of went right back to kind of what I was like as a teenager, and I was a really pretentious London teenager, you know, sort of dyeing my hair and just sort of shouting at people. But it was a time in my life when, you know, I was really political, so for me, a good Saturday afternoon would be going on a demonstration, shouting into the megaphone, you know, and sort of maybe getting chased by the police. That was like a good Saturday afternoon. I go to art galleries, I go and see French films, I was really into music. It was before the internet was invented, and my mum had a photocopying shop, so I had a little fanzine and I used to sell that out of a carrier bag at gigs. And it's just this sort of idea that when you're a teenage girl, people tell you that you don't know anything and you don't have any power. And I was sort of thinking of people like Caitlin Moran, because her book How to Be a Woman was like a huge influence on Adorkable. And people like Lauren Laverne, who was in this band called Kinnicky, and they were teenagers, and I knew Caitlin when she was 18. And sort of, you had to rely on somebody else letting you be powerful. And I think now you've got the internet and you can just, you're in control. You can sort of be like Tavi Jevonson, like the Amazing Rookie mag. And if you've sort of got a great idea, you can start a Tumblr, you can start blogging, you can video blog. So there was that idea, and then what really sort of coalesced it for me was taking my 14-year-old niece to see the roller derby film Whip It with what's that girl's name? Ellen Page. And I don't know if you know about sort of roller derby, but it's just this really amazing thing that started in the States in the 30s. And it's just these girls on roller skates round a track, and sort of the object of it is to just bash the other team off the track. And it's kind of really violent, and they've all got mad names like Rawhide and sort of previous bodily charm. So I took my 14-year-old niece to see this film in this kind of little cinema in like a London suburb, and lots of you here are teenagers, so you know how annoying you are in the cinema, don't you? Yeah? So before the film starts, you're all kind of getting out, going to the loo and going to get picky mix and talking. And we were just all sort of sitting there, and then the film started, and it's just amazing. It's about sort of girls just being strong and powerful, and just sort of being friends. And just at the end, all these girls just sort of clapped, and I thought, wow, these girls are having their formative feminist experience. So kind of, I took all that and it kind of went into sort of Adorkable.